Here's how I've come, to make my own candles out of fats, out of beef fat, basically is what I do. But if you're a hunter, you could probably get your own, but I buy mine at the supermarket. It's cheap. But I guess if you're a survivalist, something like this might appeal to you. But what I basically do is take this fat and put it into a pan. Now some people will just simmer this with water like they're making a soup, and then cool the fat that melts and rises to the top later, and kind of skim it off the top like you might off of a soup stock. But I just put it all in a pan, simmer it, and I'll want a potato masher that after it starts to liquefy you can kind of press down these pieces, and well, we'll see how it goes as I move along. But also I've picked up some jars here. These are good, the kind of jars that you might do jelly in, the ball, these are over 8-ounce jars. But you can put the lid on these and keep them in your fridge and keep them for quite a long time. They don't need to be refrigerated, but I got some cotton string. And it's got to be all cotton or it won't burn right. I hold that to the bottom with some nuts, and I'll show you a little later. These are 1/4 20 hex nuts, and I'll show you later how I tie the string. And well, I also hold the wick up on top of the jar with some bread twist ties, you know the kind. Okay, and while that simmers, I'll just cover a little bit of how I go about doing this. I take a piece of string and tie it right onto here. I don't worry too much about, I usually just do a square knot, I go once and then twice around. And then I kind of pull the knot so it's on the inside of the nut. And the purpose here is just to make sure that the wick, it's going to be a wick, now it's just a string but it's going to be a wick, just to make sure that the wick hangs into the bottom of the jar and doesn't float when I pour the fat in. So I do that, and then you just have the nice quilted pattern on them so it'll look like jelly. Boy, I can hear that fat over there crackling. So this guy, see what's going on, right? Sometimes to get it to stick in the bottom, it'll want to slip off to the side, and you don't want the wick over in the side, so I'll dip it down into the hot fat once I get some, and it will stick right to the center, and the fat will cool just as soon as it touches, and so the string will stay right where it is. And then you just tie this guy up with a bread tie, and I just put it, pretty easy, I just put it right around and just give it one kind of twist like that. And then I pull on it to pull the string up straight. And when you pour the fat in there, you see what's going on, right? Now, once it starts to melt a little bit, it'll become sort of like soup after a while, but to start with, it'll be kind of like, it'll crackle, but eventually it will just sort of simmer away. And makes the house smell like a hamburger joint. It smells great if you're a carnivore. Anyway, we'll come back to it in a little while and see how it's doing. Pull. I still can pull the string through it, you see. So I can set it to whatever height I'm going to want. I can just pull it through this loop. Okay. So now you can hear the fat crackling in the background, huh? So, now these things really don't give off that much of an odor in the house, although they do smell, when you first blow them out, it smells like you've just had a hamburger. So I have enough. I'm going to dip this thing in fat now, and I'll show you how you stick it to the bottom. You don't have to dip the whole wick, but just the nut and maybe some of the end of the string. And now when I touch it to the bottom, it will kind of stick there. Now you're worried more about getting the nut not the nut to be so much in the bottom, but the you want the string to hang straight down, plumb, you know, kind of through the center. All right, now my string is hanging down in there. I know it's hard for you to see. I can't tip it because the minute I tip it, then it slides off. But as soon as that hardens up a little, like maybe you could see it through. The minute that it hardens up over there, the minute the fat hardens up, it'll sort of stick the string there. It's pretty clarified, you know, it's a pretty purified fat, so it keeps even at room temperature for weeks and weeks and weeks without having a bad smell or anything. And but if you keep them in the fridge, you can keep them for a long time. I don't know how long, but you take them out and cut the wick and burn them, and it's just, this is one going right here in the background, by the way. This is a 16-ounce candle. I'd made it's down to here now. When I made it initially, it was more than twice this height. And it just burns and burns and burns. And I'll show you what I do with it. It looks kind of gross, I know, but well, if you were hungry, I guess you could take these candles out and eat them, you know, if you're some kind of a survivalist, I guess. But I'm not much of a survivalist. I just like meat candles. That's what I jokingly call them around the house. My kids love it. I call them meat. Go fire up a meat candle. Well, I'm going to take these chunks of, I don't know what to call it, but they're kind of like rind, like pork rinds almost. But I'm going to take these chunks out and put them right here in the trash that I have waiting. Okay. Now I strain this just through a metal strainer, but if you were really concerned about the clarity of the fat, you could pour it through cheesecloth. I guess you could line this strainer with cheesecloth and do it that way. But of course I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to pour this right through this metal strainer, and that'll catch the bulk of it. That's all I'm concerned with. Okay? There are some pieces that have made it through the strainer, and they're just tiny. And what I'm going to do is just elevate this guy, and they'll go down to that corner in the bottom of the pan, and then they won't be such a big deal. So I'm just going to come back in a few minutes and we'll top these off. This has been sitting for quite some time now, and all the little pieces, I mean about 10 minutes, and all the pieces have kind of gone down to the bottom. I'm going to put it in this water here. It's a cool bath of water, and my goal here is just to cool the fat down a little bit and have a meat thermometer here. I just want to cool it down enough that I don't break my glass or something putting it in when I pour it in. I'm not sure that the thermal shock will end up, you know, hurting the glass or not. So I want to keep it under, you know, around boiling temperature before and it might already be that cool. I left it off on the stove for a few minutes, you know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I even poured it from one. I don't think it's all that hot now. I think we're doing all right. It's probably around 170 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's pretty good. It's a little thick. It kind of has a syrupy consistency right now. So that's probably just right to pour it. And when I pour these, I'm going to want to pour them, I'm going to pour back here, so the string is on that side, but I'm going to pour it in here. I'm going to pour very, very slowly so that I don't disturb the, so I don't disturb the wick too much and move that bolt around. I just want to pour very, very slowly, like a trickle. And I don't know how much I have. I'm going to try to fill them, I don't know. I guess I'll try to do 4 and see if I have enough for a 5th, or I don't know exactly. I guess we'll play it by ear here. Boy, and I hope I don't make a mess. I guess you wouldn't really want to have to clean this stuff up, would you? It's a good idea if you get a little bit on the wick. It'll be hard to get the wick to burn well if it's just all dry wick sticking out of the fat. I've also often wondered what it would be like to get some juniper berries or pine cones or something and simmer it in this fat and see if I can get pine scented candles out of this. It might be interesting. Looks like I'm going to get just 4 candles here, and I'll take them. So as you can see, my all the solids stayed behind. I'll try to show you. Just trying to make them all an even height now. And again, I'm going to pour some right on the wick, because I want the wick to be saturated in fat so it burns. You know, I don't want to have to prime the thing. Alright, and now I can go back and make sure that the wicks are nice and straight right up the center of the jar. You see the solids in there down in the bottom? The brown kind of solids? That stuff. I don't think it'll really hurt the candle any, but I think it can lead to its getting rancid more quickly. Alright, well, I'm just going to let these cool. You know, I'm going to look over and make sure that the wicks are coming right up the center. Then I'm going to come back and we'll see what they look like when they're all solidified. And I guess I'd just show you a close-up here so you can kind of see what's going on and what it looks like close-up. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. Okay, well, now it's been about an hour or so and they've really solidified. You can see the color's gone back to being white rather than that kind of golden kind of beer color that it was a little while ago. And anyway, I'm just gonna, I guess I'll just show you how I wrap the things up, how you finish them up. So I take this guy, and as you can imagine, just untwist it. And then you're going to cut most of this off. Alright, you know how much they leave at a candle store or something, right? 1/4 inch or so. And you want to leave, I guess, around 1/4 inch. And that's it. And hopefully that's got some, that wick have a little fat right on it, so it's ready to burn. And now at this point, you know, like I say, you can put the lid right on it, pop it in the fridge, give it as a gift. Can you imagine? You could do that for Valentine's Day. Huh? A meat candle. Alright. Anyway, they're nice because you can use your old bacon fat, you can use the skimmings off the top of a pan of soup. In a pinch, you could always spread it on toast, and I guess it's kind of eco-friendly if you're into that sort of thing, and you know, they burn nicely. Enjoy.